Hi, this is Steve from Deep Instinct. Over the next few minutes, we're going to take a look at the Ryuk Ransomware. We're going to take a look at how it works, the impacts that it could have on your environment, and finally, I'll show you how the Deep Instinct security solution can help protect you from being a target of Ryuk. So first, let's talk a little bit about the ransomware itself. So there's a really good alert that came out from the US CERT that really breaks down Ryuk in detail. We'll provide a link to this cert in the comments of the video, but I'll tell you the high points right now. So basically, in the alert, Ryuk is identified as kind of a latest iteration of an older family of ransomware called Hermes 2.1, I guess specifically, that emerged around 2017. So the attackers, they've changed most of the code, but there's still some remnants of that Hermes ransomware that you can still kind of identify. The alert gets into how the ransomware actually works. So it talks about how when negotiating with the victim, the Ryuk actors will use commercially off-the-shelf products like Cobalt or PowerShell Empire to steal credentials. It says the framework is very robust and highly effective at using dual-purpose tools. So that allows the actors to dump the clear text passwords or hash values from memory with use of Mimikatz. So this also allows the actors to inject malicious dynamic link library into the memory with read, write, and execute permissions in order to maintain persistence in the environment. And they've also been known to use scheduled tasks and create services to really remain hidden. So what Ryuk, the actors, are going to typically do is they're going to map the network to enumerate the environment, to understand the scope of the infection, and then in order to limit suspicious activity and possible detection, the alert goes on to say that the actors choose to live off the land where possible using native tools such as NetView, NetComputer, and Ping to locate map network share drives, domain controllers, Active Directory, and so on. They'll also move laterally through the network, so they'll use tools like PowerShell or WMI or Windows Remote Management or RDP to get around. They'll also use third-party tools like Bloodhound. So once it's dropped, the Ryuk ransomware is using an AES 256 encryption to encrypt the files and an RSA public key to encrypt the AES key. So the dropper drops a .bat file that attempts to delete all the backups and the volume shadow copies, preventing you from being able to recover encrypted files without paying the ransom, essentially. So it also says that the attackers will attempt to shut down or uninstall any security products that might be on the systems. So they'll try to do that via script, but if they're not able to, they'll also try to manually remove the applications that they couldn't stop during the attack. Long story short, this is a pretty sophisticated piece of ransomware, but there's also another interesting thing I want to point out here. So I'm going to reference an article that was written by SonicWall based on their kind of data and their research. They've seen the Ryuk ransomware, the use of it shoot up tremendously this year. It says that it accounts for a third of all the attacks that they're seeing. So essentially last year in Q3 of 2019, and I'll also put a link to this article if you want to read it in more detail, they saw just over 5,000 Ryuk attacks, but through Q3 of 2020, they've detected 67 million Ryuk attacks. So that's a third of all the ransomware attacks that they've seen this year. But here's what the interesting part is. So the writers talk about the fact that the increased remote and mobile workforces appear to have increased in its prevalence, resulting not only in financial losses, but also impacting healthcare services with attacks on hospitals. Ryuk is especially dangerous because it is targeted, manual, and here's the key point. It's often leveraged via multi-stage attack preceded by, here comes, Emotet and TrickBot. So therefore, if your organization is seeing Ryuk, there's a pretty good indication that you've also been infested with other types of malware. So this is pretty nasty stuff. We certainly want to help you protect your environments from that. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to pivot away from what this ransomware does, and I'm going to take a look and show you how we can help protect you. So the good folks over at Risk IQ, they put together a nice repository of a bunch of indicators of compromise for the Ryuk ransomware. So what I did is I went in and copied their hash values that they had published and downloaded all these samples onto my test machine here, which I can show you. I have, 1 second, here. So I have a bunch of samples that I've downloaded, and what I'm going to show you is how we can help protect you from being a target and a victim of the Ryuk ransomware. Now, before I do that, I got to tell you a little bit about what our solution does. So if you're not really familiar with Deep Instinct, we are a deep learning cybersecurity solution that's using deep learning to identify and prevent threats from impacting your environment before they have the ability to execute. Okay, so what does that really mean? Essentially, what our solution is, we are an agent-based solution that within the agent has what we call a D-brain, and this is a deep learning neural network. Now, this neural network has been trained by us against millions and millions of malicious files and benign files. We do this training in the cloud. It requires a tremendous amount of CPU. We're using NVIDIA GPUs to get these models trained. Our data science team, once they feel that the results, the efficacy of the model is at the level that we want it to be, which is obviously very high, we compress that model and we make that available to be installed on endpoints. And by endpoints, we're talking about desktops, laptops, servers, and mobile devices. So now, once you have this D-brain installed on your machine, it's sitting there waiting. It's waiting for two things to happen. Well, I should say, the first time it gets installed, a comprehensive scan of your machine will occur. So the idea here is we want to get you to a trusted state. So using this D-brain, we're performing a static file analysis. So we're gonna analyze all the files on the machine and identify anything that is malicious or potentially unwanted, anything that has markers that would make it seem that it's malicious. And we're very effective at this, and our customers have told us, and we've seen, that we're able to identify these threats while at the same time producing virtually no false positives, extremely low amount of false positives. So once we're installed and you have a baseline, now this D-brain is going to sit there, and it just sits there quietly. It doesn't do anything. It's looking for two things to occur: files moving onto the machine or files moving around the machine. So in order for me to even get these files onto the machine, I moved our agent into what we call detect only mode, so that it would allow me to move the files to the machine. But now I want to see, well, how can we stop it? Are we going to be able to identify Ryuk and stop it? So what I'll do here is I'm going to go back into I'm going to turn on prevention, but I'm going to do one other thing as well. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go down in our configuration, and I'm going to select an old brain. So one of the things you should note about our solution is, unlike a lot of other products, we do not update our ability to identify threats very often, only twice a year on average. So because it has a resilient ability, or its ability to identify threats is very resilient, meaning that even after we train the model, and again, we train it and it gets deployed, it's no longer trained. There's no additional training that happens. But the model, we've seen it time and time again, being able to identify threats that appeared way after it had been trained. So, for example, this model that I'm going to test right now, this 109, was trained in November, I believe, of 2018. So now we're talking 2 years ago. So let's see. Let's put it through our paces. I'm going to say let's use those two. Let's put it to prevent, and then I'll come over here. Okay, you can see now I am in detect and prevent mode. Okay, so let's go back to my samples that, again, I downloaded. So it looks like, okay, so we have 93. So all I'm going to do here, and again, we're doing this pre-execution. This isn't about when a user starts to try to use one of these applications or these files. It's literally when these files are either moved to the machine or moved around the machine. So to initiate the brain, I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy them to a new file, a new folder. Let's see what happens. So as you can see right now, the brain is going through and it's identifying these as malicious. We can see we have 55, 68, 73, 81, 93. How many files was I trying to remove? 93. So you can see right now, just to be clear, I had 93 samples of Ryuk, files that were associated with this ransomware. And I pull these based on those indicators from RiskIQ. So they're fairly new. I have a brain that was trained in November of 2018 that I'm using on my machine. So as I tried to move these, every one of these files was analyzed, and in milliseconds, our system was able to identify that every single one of these samples was malicious. So now, of course, can we guarantee that every single time a threat tries to get moved to your machine, that we can identify it? No one can guarantee 100% prevention. What I can show you here, and we just looked at, is that in this scenario, out of these 93 that I tried to move over, every single one of them was identified as malicious. So I know that that's going to give you results that's going to be better than whatever else you can find in the market. So that's it. That's really the entire demonstration. So if you'd like to learn more about how we can help protect you from Ryuk Ransomware, among other threats, please do reach out to us. We'd be happy to set up a meeting to show you how we can help better secure your environment. Thanks for your time.